Well, I really feel very honored to be here, and I really want to thank Nancy Powell and Bob Arthur, is that right? And Carolyn Ferranda for her friendship and her words. And it's wonderful to hear all the words today that all the voices reading. It's been really phenomenal, and it just shows that there's no one claim on poetry, on what poetry is. There's really, I tell my students, it's kind of like cuisine, and you want to embrace a wide variety of voices and kinds of poetry, and to close yourself off to that is really a mistake. So it's really been fun. I think that's all I need for I'm a little bit nervous. It's such a distinguished group. So I thought I might start with an older poem, and I'll tell you the little story. I have kind of a connection to the state of Virginia. I met my husband here. He came down with me, and we met at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. And that was pretty neat. That's near Sweetbriar College, you know. And later he came to Michigan, and we got married, et cetera, et cetera. So the way I usually introduce this poem, and I mean it in the nicest possible way, and I admire my husband for being able to listen to the poem, is if you've been married, then you've probably contemplated divorce at times. Just because,
or murder.
Or murder. Just because of the way it is to live with other people. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a little hut outside our house where I go out and write, because Stan used to come home and slam the door and say, you know, what should we have for dinner? And I'd think, you know, I'm trying to work on a poem. So you'll hear, I was thinking really about if we could divide everything up 50-50, how would we divide everything up? So this is called 50-50. You can have the grackle whistling blackly from the feeder as it tosses seed. If I can have the red-tailed hawk perched imperious as an eagle on the high branch. You can have the brown shed, the field mice hiding under the mower, the wasp's nest on the door. If I can have the house of the dead oak, its hollowed center and feather-lined cave. You can have the deck at midnight, the possum vacuuming the yard in its white prowl. If I can have the yard of wild dreaming, pesky raccoons, and the roaming occasional bear. You can have the whole house. I was thinking of cleaning. Window to window, roof to soffits to hardwood floors. If I can have the screen porch at dawn, the Milky Way, any comets in our yard. So that's my Virginia poem. Now, we had Jane Hirschfield come to our school recently to give a reading, and she was pretty cute. And she said, you know, my individual poems, they don't really warrant applause, and if you don't applaud at one of them, I'll feel really sad. So I guess I'd just say, why don't you hold your applause till all of the poems. That way I won't feel bad for one of the poems not getting. See what I'm saying? So I thought I'd start at the beginning of the book, and we have a lot of, I bet you have them here, wild turkeys. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, we've seen a flock of 20 come through our yard, and they are really weird birds. But I've watched them a lot, so this is that kind of a poem. It's called Balance, January. It's stranger than you can account for, being alive. A cold January morning, and 20 wild turkeys high up in white oaks. Their waking up stretches in half-light, first unbending out of a hunched ball, then unfurling a wing, the second, while the broad tail sticks out, flares, judders up and down. Everyone says how stupid they are, will drown when it rains simply by gazing up. I can't call them beautiful, but I grudgingly give them credit for the way they balance on brittle, thin branches, seemingly without fear. How to have poise, to nestle down, to rest on a fragile thing.